The night that changed everything arrived without warning, carried in on a storm that rattled the windows and shook loose the careful walls I had built around my heart. I had spent years convincing myself that loneliness was safer than hope, that quiet was better than disappointment, and that sleeping alone meant never waking up broken. But sometimes life waits until you are tired enough, wounded enough, to finally listen. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when two hurting souls meet at the right time, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this one are born from those very beliefs. My name is Nathan Walker, and this happened in a small coastal town outside Savannah, Georgia, where the ocean air always smells like salt and old memories. I worked nights repairing boats at a marina, a job that left my hands scarred and my mind busy enough to avoid thinking about the past. Years earlier, a broken engagement had taught me how quickly promises could dissolve, how someone could swear forever and mean only until it became inconvenient. Since then, I had learned to live simply. I owned a modest house with creaky floors, a stubborn coffee maker, and a bed that had only ever belonged to me. That bed was my sanctuary, a place where no one could leave me again. Grace Thompson entered my life on a night when the rain refused to stop. She was new to town, renting the small blue house 2 doors down, and everyone noticed her quiet kindness before they noticed her beauty. She volunteered at the local church pantry, smiled at strangers, and carried a sadness she never explained. We met the way most real connections begin, through small, ordinary moments. A dropped bag of groceries, a shared laugh over spilled apples, long conversations on the porch as thunder rolled in the distance. She never pushed, never pried, and that made me trust her more than anyone I had known in years. But Grace was running from something. I could see it in the way she flinched at raised voices, in how she slept lightly during storms, in the way her smile sometimes faded too quickly. She had come to Georgia after leaving a life in Ohio that had taught her how fragile safety could be. An unhealthy marriage, emotional wounds that no apology could fix, and a divorce that left her with more scars than closure. She was rebuilding herself piece by piece, and I admired her strength even as I feared becoming part of her healing story. I had promised myself I would never be someone's halfway stop again. The night everything came to the surface, the storm knocked out power across the neighborhood. Grace showed up at my door soaked from the rain, eyes tired, shoulders trembling. She wasn't dramatic or desperate, just honest in the quiet way that feels heavier than shouting. She admitted she was afraid to be alone that night, that the darkness had awakened memories she thought she had buried. I invited her inside, gave her dry clothes, and made tea by candlelight. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, close enough to feel each other's presence but far enough to protect old wounds. As the hours passed, the storm outside mirrored the one inside me. I wanted to be there for her, to offer comfort, but fear whispered warnings in my ear. Letting someone close meant risking everything I had worked so hard to stabilize. Grace eventually admitted she didn't want to sleep alone, not because of desire, but because of fear. The request was simple, human, and terrifying. My bed had never been shared since my heart broke, and the thought of opening that space felt like opening a door I might not be able to close again. What I offered her wasn't an invitation born of impulse, but a boundary shaped by years of learning the hard way. I told her she could stay, but only if what we shared meant more than survival for one night. I didn't want to be a temporary refuge, a place she ran to when the past got loud. I wanted something rooted, intentional, and real. Grace didn't answer right away. She studied me as if weighing whether my words were a promise or another potential disappointment. Eventually she nodded, not with certainty, but with courage. That night, we slept side by side, fully clothed, space between us, the storm slowly fading into silence. It wasn't about bodies or comfort alone, it was about trust. For the first time in years, I slept deeply, without fear of waking up alone in the wrong way. When morning came, sunlight filled the room, and Grace smiled with a softness that felt like hope taking its first breath. The days that followed weren't perfect. Healing never is. Grace struggled with guilt, wondering if she was leaning too much too soon. I battled my instinct to retreat whenever emotions deepened. We had awkward moments, misunderstandings, and long silences that tested our patience. But instead of running, we stayed. We chose honesty over avoidance, prayer over panic, and patience over fear. Slowly, our connection transformed from cautious companionship into something steady and warm. We built routines together. Morning coffee on the porch, Sunday church services followed by pancakes, evening walks along the shoreline where we talked about dreams instead of regrets. Grace began to laugh more freely. I began to believe again. The bed that once symbolized solitude became a place of peace, not because it was shared, but because it represented a commitment to showing up every day, even when it was hard. The real test came when Grace received a letter from her past, a reminder of the life she had escaped. Old wounds reopened, and fear crept back into her voice. She questioned whether she was ready for forever, whether she was strong enough to build something new without losing herself again. This time, instead of pushing her to stay, I told her she was free to choose, that love didn't trap, it invited. That was when she realized the difference between what she had known and what we were building. Months later, under a sky painted with Georgia stars, I asked her to marry me, not with grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but with a quiet promise to keep choosing her, even on the days when fear knocked loudest. She said yes with tears in her eyes, not because she needed saving, but because she had found a partner willing to walk beside her, not ahead or behind. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment the word forever below if you believe love should be patient, safe, and built on trust. Now, as you listen to this final moment, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing is possible and love can still find you even after broken promises, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. Because sometimes, sharing a bed isn't about the night at all. Sometimes it's about choosing to share a lifetime, one brave moment at a time.